Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin today in Ghana, where gunmen believed to be members of a secessionist group have attacked a bus station and burnt down one vehicle in the town of Ho in the Volta region. Reports say the attackers opened fire during this morning's incident. They also held a security guard hostage at gunpoint before beating up some drivers at the station. On Friday, a group calling itself the Western Togoland Restoration Front attacked two police stations and exchanged fire with security officers, killing one person and leaving 5 others injured. 5 different groups have been campaigning for decades to form a new country called Western Togoland, made up of parts of Volta region and northern Ghana. All right, let's get more on this story from Joy News TV correspondent Winston Amoa. Thank you so much, Winston, for speaking to us on Network Africa. Now, tell us, what more can you tell us about this bus station attack in the Volta region?
Well, so we've learned that, these persons believed to belong to one of the secessionist group went to the bus station early this morning and burnt down. He actually held the drivers and security guards at the station hostage and then burnt one of the buses. And through the burning of one of the buses, also affected another bus that was totally burnt. So one bus totally burnt. They fired gunshots before going ahead to do this. Now, what we have gathered so far is that the police have said that they are going to investigate this, and so investigations are still ongoing. Many of the conversations have been what happened to intelligence, considering the fact
seems like we'll try and reconnect with Winston Amoa later on in the program. Well, let's move on to the COVID-19 stories. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged the international community to learn from mistakes made over the handling of the coronavirus pandemic. This comes as the number of people known to have died from the virus rises above the 1 million mark. The US, Brazil, and India account for nearly half of the million victims.
Our world has reached an agonizing milestone. The loss of 1 million lives from the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a mind-numbing figure. Yet we must never lose sight of each and every individual life. They were fathers and mothers, wives and husbands, brothers and sisters, friends and colleagues. The pain has been multiplied by the savageness of this disease. Risks of infection kept families from bedsides, and the process of mourning and celebrating a life was often made impossible. How do you say goodbye without holding a hand, or extending a gentle kiss, a warm embrace, a final whispered, "I love you"? And still there is no end in sight to the spread of the virus, the loss of jobs, the disruption of education, the upheaval of our lives. We can overcome this challenge, but we must learn from the mistakes. Responsible leadership matters, science matters, cooperation matters, and misinformation kills. As the relentless hunt for a vaccine continues, a vaccine that must be available and affordable to all, let's do our part to save lives. Keeping physical distance, wearing a mask, washing hands. As we remember so many lives lost, let us never forget that our future rests on solidarity, as people united and as united nations.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says some 120 million rapid diagnostic tests for coronavirus will be made available to low and middle income countries at a maximum of $5 per unit. The tests, which can provide results in between 15 to 30 minutes, are to be rolled out globally starting from October.
I have good news. I'm pleased to announce that thanks to an agreement between WHO and partners here today and others, a substantial proportion of these rapid tests, 120 million, will be made available to low and middle income countries. These tests provide reliable results in approximately 15 to 30 minutes, rather than hours or days, at a lower price with less sophisticated equipment. Volume guarantee agreements have been developed between two manufacturers and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which will make 120 million of these new highly portable and easy-to-use rapid diagnostic tests available over a period of 6 months. Currently, they are priced at a maximum of $5 per unit.
Well, in East Africa, Uganda will begin human trials of a COVID-19 vaccine in November. The vaccine, called self-replicating RNA, has been developed through a partnership between Uganda Virus Research Institute and the Imperial College in the UK. The head of the Presidential Task Force on Epidemics, Monica Musenero, says the first trial will be conducted on 10 Ugandans. If successful, a second trial will involve about 100 to 200 people, followed by a final trial of between 1,000 and 3,000 people. The country has confirmed more than 7,000 coronavirus cases and 75 deaths. Today is World Heart Day, and the World Heart Federation is raising awareness of the dangers coronavirus poses to the heart health. Those who suffer from cardiovascular disease or who have high blood pressure face a higher risk of complications from the virus. According to the WHF, those at risk should not be afraid to seek in-person medical care. They should also follow social distancing and mask use advice, keep taking their medicines, and also try to secure a large supply of their medicine so they don't have to put themselves at risk too frequently. Well, in Kenya, one person has died in a car park while waiting for treatment at the country's largest referral hospital. This comes as health workers strike in protest against delayed pay of improved salaries and allowances. The management of Kenyatta National Hospital says the deceased, who's a motorbike taxi rider, arrived at the hospital while in a critical state and nothing could be done to save him. The workers are demanding the implementation of resolutions from an advisory committee that were passed in 2012. Let's now move to our top story coming from Ghana. We have Winston Amoa, who is talking to us about the attack on a bus station this morning in Accra. Hello, Winston. Good to have you back. Let me ask you what has been the reaction to this, especially this morning. It is quite an unusual incident.
Yes, exactly. So the police have indicated investigations have begun. And so currently investigations are ongoing. We're waiting on the police for further information. But of course, if you go to the town of Go, many persons are worried. The Volta Regional House of Chiefs has been speaking. They've been urging the National Security Ministry as well as the Volta Regional Minister to engage chiefs and tell them steps that are being taken to ensure that these events do not recur.
Now, for decades, 5 different groups have been campaigning to form a new country. What exactly do these separatists want?
Well, it's a very long story, but they've talked about independence for Western Togoland comprising basically British Togoland. So, Togo after the First World War was held in trust for the people by both French and British masters, and so the British Togoland became part of Ghana. Now, what these persons are asking for is that they want an independent Western Togoland. In effect, they do not want to be part of Ghana. The challenge, however, is that those who are making this request are mainly from, the Volta region. Now, even in the Volta region, not all of them took part in the plebiscite of 1956. And so that's where the challenge stems from, the fact that some few persons, that's the People's Liberation Council, the Western Togoland Restoration Group, and the Homeland Steady Foundation Group, these three are basically those fighting for independence for Western Togoland. They want to be an independent country. They do not want to be part of Ghana.
All right, finally, just before I let you go, so what efforts is the government making to contain this so that it doesn't escalate into a full-blown war?
Well, so I was in the Volta region over the weekend. I saw lots of military and police personnel mounting roadblocks in the region. The Minister of Information has been engaging the country and talked about how government is aware there's nothing like a security intelligence failure, and that government would very soon publish the names of the financiers of this group. But one thing also is that the Volta Regional House of Chiefs is urging government to come in there, engage them. And government itself has acknowledged the fact that it would need to engage everybody, would need to ensure that all of these things are, brought under control. So there's been lots of, intelligence gathering, lots of patrolling in the Volta region. That's what government has been doing so far.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Winston Amoa, Joy News TV correspondent. Thank you for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
Moving on to North Africa, the Sudanese army says it has repelled an attack on its troop by a key group that held out from last month's peace agreement between the government and armed rebel groups. The army says that the Sudan Liberation Movement, SLM, led by Abdel Wahid al-Noor, attacked its troops in Baudong, Jebel Mara. The peace agreement signed on August 31st brought the Sudan Revolutionary Front, a coalition of rebel groups, into the Sudan transitional government. The deal, which came after nearly a year of talks, promised to end the devastating wars in Darfur, South Kordofan, and the Blue Nile. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says his country has no intention of harming Sudan and Egypt with a giant hydropower dam on the Blue Nile that has caused the bitter water disputes between the three countries. Mr. Ahmed made the comments in a pre-recorded speech played in the UN General Assembly Hall to delegates. Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan failed to strike a deal on the operation of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam before Ethiopia began filling the reservoir behind the dam in July, but the three states have returned to the African Union-led mediation.
I want to make it abundantly clear that we have no intention to harm these countries. What we are essentially doing is to meet our electricity demands from one of the cleanest sources of energy. We cannot afford to continue keeping more than 65 million of our people in the dark. We have indeed been guided by the internationally accepted principle of equitable utilization and not causing significant harm in building this dam. Our unwavering commitment to this is clearly captured in the Declaration of Principles signed by Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan in March 2015. I want to assure that we are firm in our commitment to addressing the concerns of downstream countries and reaching a mutual beneficial outcome in the context of the ongoing African Union-led process.
Zimbabwe's State Security Minister Owen Nkube has accused the opposition of conniving with Western governments to smuggle guns into the country in a bid to topple President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government. Without providing evidence, Mr. Nkube says a Western country, which he did not name, had come up with a plan to make Zimbabwe ungovernable to justify foreign intervention. Working with the opposition under what he called Operation Lighthouse, the minister says weapons would be smuggled in and militias set up. Officials from the opposition Movement for Democratic Change have, however, described the allegations as false, adding that the party is committed to non-violence. Rights groups say President Mnangagwa's government has become increasingly intolerant of criticism, especially during the current economic crisis. Well, let's get more on this story from Zimbabwean journalist George Mushumba. Hello, George. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, how are Zimbabweans reacting to the State Security Minister's accusation?
Well, the news, yesterday's press conference, it came at the same time when the opposition parties, the two main opposition parties, they are supposed to be one, but they've been splitting gradually. The MDC Alliance and the MDCT. Yesterday, there also their internal strifes trying to take over the party headquarters, and so the press conference by the security minister was all but nearly forgotten, or it was ignored. there's these two, and the issue with the opposition at the moment, they are concentrating on their own internal fights, and they didn't see this or listen to this very important press conference, which could be a precursor of further measures by government to curtail the movements of the opposition.
And these are heavy accusations. If indeed there is a so-called Operation Lighthouse, as alleged by the minister, what is the government and the security forces doing to nip this in the bud? Seems like we're having some audio difficulties. Moving on to Algeria, lawyers in the country have held a protest in the capital, Algiers, against what they describe as lack of judicial justice and independence. They also lament over the deteriorating state of freedoms and political detainees in the country. Rights watchdog Amnesty International has previously condemned several court rulings in the country, describing them as a mockery of justice in a country supposedly undergoing political change and transformation following mass protests. Algeria has seen a wave of mass protests since February 2019, which sought to sweep away the country's ruling elite. The weekly protests were put on hold when the coronavirus pandemic reached the North African country in March. Well, a memorandum of understanding has been signed by the Jonglei state authorities and the United Nations mission in South Sudan for the first of 5 sites under the UN protection. The site is to be officially redesignated as an IDP camp under the sovereign control of the South Sudanese government. The MOU commits the government to providing protection and ensuring none of the 1,900 residents remaining are forced to leave the site.
This sea of white tents is home to Diou Majok and many other displaced families who fled the brutal civil war that erupted in South Sudan in 2013. He and 4 relatives have remained in the UN protection of civilian sites in Bor for the past 7 years, while the rest of his children are scattered between his hometown Fangak and neighboring Uganda. Majok's hope is for his scattered family to be reunited. He sees the transition of the POC site to a more conventional camp as a positive sign of progress towards peace.
I'm ready to leave the POC when the integrated police is ready. And then I will leave the POC immediately. Even though if I don't have a house ready outside, the government will put me where he can put the IDPs. And then I will go and stay there together with the IDP or wherever the government will put me there.
The redesignation follows a year of careful planning and an assessment that there has been no external threat to the site since 2017. The UN mission has gradually withdrawn its troops in response to the improved security situation. This has enabled the peacekeeping mission to deploy forces on static duties at the camp to hotspots where civilians' lives are in immediate danger.
The only thing that has changed is the removal of static guards from this place, and we'll continue to engage them. We have increased the number of mobile patrols that we come here, so our presence is ever.
No one will be forced to leave the camp, and humanitarian services will continue. The site is now simply a normal IDP camp like dozens of others across the country.
The achievement of today is that the message has been brought by the delegation from Juba, first to show that the government adhered to the process. The government is fully supportive to the process, first. Second, the government to assure them that they are ready to take over from UNMISS when it comes to the safety and security of the people in the POC.
The gradual withdrawal of UNMISS troops and redesignation process will continue at the 4 remaining POC sites over the coming weeks and months as the situation in each camp permits.
850 UN peacekeepers from Nepal who are deployed in South Sudan have received the United Nations Medal for their service. They were praised for their work during an especially challenging time when conflicts and displacement have been exacerbated by the spread of COVID-19 across the war-torn African country. Currently, some 5,700 Nepalese peacekeepers serve across 13 UN peacekeeping missions. 68 peacekeepers from Nepal have lost their lives while serving for peace around the world.
And I want to thank you for the variety of work that you've done over the course of your time here of nearly a year. You've undertaken force protection, community engagement, obviously some of the work that you've been doing down in Yei, which means moving into more difficult areas, but also to the reinforcement that you provided to Pibor earlier this year when there were intercommunal violence there and many, many people were at risk.
As peacekeepers, we think the most important characteristics that we can bring to all deployments are the ability to comprehend the situation, respect for the rule of the land, dedication to the mission, and sense of pride in the duty we perform. The people of South Sudan graciously helped us understand and appreciate this place, and we are grateful for this generosity of his spirit.
And that's where we end Network Africa today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.